Hey, Pete, Steve Gelbs from SNY. Congratulations. Just wondering, I mean, very basic. You've been working your whole life, obviously, for this. What are the emotions right now as you get drafted?
Man, I mean, it's really tough to explain. Um, I've really never felt anything like this before. In the moment, it was uh, shocking and it was a bit of a rush. But I mean, after that, it's just a ton of excitement to get ready to start with the Mets. So I'm thankful to the organization, to Brodie, and everybody else. And man, I can't wait.
Hey, Pete, congratulations. I heard you say you like to have fun and be yourself on the field. So what can the fans of New York expect from you?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I love to display kind of the intangibles as well as what I can bring physically. But you know, I feel like as a baseball player, I want to get the fans engaged and excited. So I definitely bring a lot of energy. I'm a big talker. I love to communicate. That's obviously an important thing, but also I think being vocal on the field is kind of all around a good thing to do. So energy, excitement. I want to interact with the fans. I want to be more than just a baseball player. I want to make an impact. So yeah.
Hey, Pete, Justin Toscano, Bergen Record here. I just wanted to ask you, when during your high school career, even before, did you start to know that professional baseball was in your future?
That's a tough question for me. I think I started, feeling like I could do something like this around, the summer going into my junior year. But other than that, as a high school baseball player, I feel like a lot of the time you're so consumed with, summer tournaments and all that, and trying to commit to a college and then school on top of that. So, personally, I didn't think about it all that much. Every day I kind of just went out and tried and played my game. And especially recently with the current circumstances, that was my big focus. So it was enjoying my last few games with my friends, and I think I did a good job of doing that throughout high school.
Hey, Pete, congratulations. Anthony Tacoma with MLB.com. I'm sure you've answered this a million times over the years, but as soon as you got drafted, I saw all on Twitter about how your mom was actually in Little Big League, actress in the movie. I'm curious, how much you heard about that growing up, and what did you think of the movie?
Oh man, I mean, I started hearing about the whole Jenny Haywood thing from other people besides, my family when I was around 12. And I think it's cool. People thought that was a neat little fact. And I love the movie. And I think I'd love it if my mom wasn't in it. But, she was obviously also great in it. So I'm a big fan of the movie. But, yeah, man, I think it's a cool little fun fact too. So
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Pete, this is Tim Healy from Newsday. One quick one and then another one about your high school. How much of a senior season did you get to have before things shut down? And then with the trio of pitchers, Flaherty, Giolito, Fried, coming from your high school, how much have you interacted with them in recent years? Do they ever come back?
So we got 10 games in our regular season, but, lucky that I live in SoCal and I got to have a pretty good fall and winter. We got some good games in there. So that was lucky. And I'm super fortunate that was the case. And then in regards to Jack, Max, and Lucas, they've always been super gracious, with their time coming back. And I mean, all three of them are back in the off season. Jack is usually there a little longer than Lucas and Max, but each one of them does their own thing. But every time they come, they're always, incredibly open and willing to give advice. And I've been super lucky to be able to interact with them over the last 3-4 years. So I think again, brief interactions and I've gotten pretty close with a couple of them, but pretty big impacts regardless of how much time I've been able to spend with them.
Thank you.
Hey, Pete, congratulations. This is Tim Britton from The Athletic. I'm wondering if there's a player in particular that you've modeled yourself after, that you see yourself in at all, or a player you've enjoyed watching the most growing up.
I like to take a lot of different things from different guys. I think it was always hard for me to compare myself to somebody else. I always wanted to be the best version of myself that I could be. So I always just picked out players that I genuinely enjoyed watching, and that goes from guys like Javi Baez and Acuna to more recent ones like Soto and guys like that. I was a big McCutchen fan growing up. I mean, Griffey's my favorite player of all time. Obviously, I didn't really get to see much of him, but guys that, look like they're having a good time. And I mean, the things they can do on the field are obviously something to shoot for. So I think that's always kind of how I modeled my game after different people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pete, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Welcome to the organization. And you are free to go celebrate with your family.
All righty. Thank you guys so much. Excited to get to New York. Thank you guys.
Guys, this is actually for Tommy and Marc specifically, but we've heard a lot about his defense in particular. What separates Pete defensively, and just what type of a ceiling does he have as a center fielder?
I'll take this one right now, Tram. Hi, Steve. How you doing? Well, I tell you, all spring I called him the left-handed magician in center field. He was one of the kids you saw last summer, one of the rare players that you would watch batting practice and watch him play defense, going back on balls. He had such a knack for the ball. He would fool around in center field, catching balls in between his legs, kind of showing off. When I see a defensive player, whether it's a shortstop, a catcher, or a center fielder, who likes to show their tools and likes to show off like that in pregame while he's getting his work done, I know you have a pretty advanced defensive player. But, his first step to a ball, by the time the ball's hit and you're scouting him, he's already in a full sprint with terrific reads, terrific hands, and fearless center fielder. So he was actually probably the easiest center fielder I've had a chance to scout.
Yeah, Steve, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Yeah, the anticipation element to his game is as good as I think I've seen in a really long time in an amateur center fielder. There's such a natural glide to what he does and ease to what he does in center field, going into each gap and going back, coming in, that it's just different than everybody else. It's so noticeable. He takes really, really clean routes and settles under the ball as well as anybody. It's just, he knows what he's doing in terms of the ball off the bat. The reactions are very, very good. Again, it's fun to watch this type of center fielder, especially as young as he is.
Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, congrats. This question's for any of you. It might work best for Brodie. I'm just curious, every year we hear from not just you guys, but every team, best player available. How much maybe this year does change with the shortened draft? And also just given, what your farm system looks like top to bottom, how much were you maybe hoping that an outfielder would fall to you guys at 19?
Yeah. Hey, Tony, love the beard. But by the way, I don't think any of us have
It's
seen
not staying, just so you know.
Very, very good.
Maybe you should grow one, Brodie.
Yeah, one day. Well, okay. So, I think draft strategy is something that we talk a lot about. Philosophy is part of any draft boardroom. So we had to have that discussion about position, about need, but more than anything else, when the board is built, sometimes it takes care of itself in terms of how clear-cut the player is to select. And Pete stood out because he was so far up the board that regardless of position, regardless of college, high school, Pittsburgh, it didn't matter because he was such that it stood out that we had to. And in this particular situation, he was a guy that we had targeted for months and months. And I'll give Tommy and Tram and our entire scouting department credit for having such a great offensive players and particularly high school hitters. These guys know how to identify swings. And Pete Crow-Armstrong had one of the best swings in the draft. We were thrilled to go after and try to make it happen.
And quickly, if I could, for either Tommy or Marc, we've already heard a lot about his defense. What do you see as his defensive profile? Where do you kind of see him ending up as an offensive player at the highest level?
Well, we see Pete as a top of the order type of hitter. He has such advanced bat to ball skills. Really, what we call great barrel feel. High contact guy with some power behind it, and it's been increasing power since he was 15 years old. He keeps getting stronger. His path to the ball has been great. His plate awareness is tremendous, and discipline at the plate. He has all the makings of the hitters that we've drafted in the past, the same similarities to him. But on top of that, he's a little bit faster than your average player. So, he's going to be able to leg out hits at the same time, drive the ball into the gap. So he has a lot of weapons on his side.
Cool. Thank you.
Hey, I've got a couple different ones. First for Marc and Tommy. How confident were you earlier today that Pete would still be on the board for you guys? And then for Brodie, kind of what's the plan with not just Pete, but the other guys you select from here on out to the end of the year after you do get them signed?
I think wherever you're picking, you're always a little bit nervous, and it's nervous, excited. You just never know. And this year was so different with the shutdown that it was really difficult to tell who was going to go where. We usually have a little bit better feel as we get into April and May, but we were very, very excited. Like Tommy said, this was a player that we had targeted coming into the year. It was a guy that we went in. I got a chance to see him twice. Tommy saw him. A lot of our cross-checkers and senior people saw Pete. So we were just very excited. But it's always nerve-wracking to wait out your pick, and especially picking 19. So it's not that far, but it is that far. So yeah, I was a little bit nervous, but we're very excited.
Tim, for your question about what happens now, I think that was your question.
Yeah.
Like any normal draft year, first things first, we have to negotiate a contract. We have to find common ground on the financial terms. We're going to have to sure we get eyeballs on the player from a physical and medical standpoint. Once we get those two things done, then we have to evaluate where we are in the country at that point as far as the health and safety of players. Can we congregate with our prospects? We just don't know. So those are uncertain things in our future. We'll always prioritize the player safety, but we're hopeful at some point we'll be able to put him in a uniform and be in a position where we can start developing his skills. But some of those questions obviously are unknown based on the pandemic and obviously based on the opportunity to develop players wherever that may be.
Thank you.
Hey, Brodie, hope you and your family are well. He is a Vandy commit. Do you expect to sign him? I heard you talk a little bit about specifics, but do you expect to sign him, and if so, when?
Hey, Bruce. I think when you select a player, especially at the top of the draft, we have to do our homework on the player's signability. We do character assessments, and all in addition to the player's talent. We feel comfortable that we're going to be able to find common ground with the player. I think he's motivated, as you heard, to be a New York Met. He's motivated to get a chance to pursue his professional dreams, and I know we're motivated to try to reach an agreement. So I'm optimistic we'll be able to reach a deal amicably.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think I was muted. But just he came off very well respected, and scouts have said that he can be in the game right now. And even his personality seemed like he wasn't totally fazed by any of the draft. So how much of his overall demeanor goes into the culture that you're trying to create going forward?
Culture is important. We want to have players that believe in themselves. We want to have players that aren't afraid to show emotion on the field. And Pete's one of those guys. He's a Southern California kid. He grew up in the same area I grew up. He knows how to play in front of the spotlight. He's one of these kids that's been on the national radar screen since he was 12 years old. He played on a USA team at 12. So he's been a big fish in a big pond for a long time, and I think his personality and his confidence will play very well in New York City.
Hey, Brodie, you tweeted out a little earlier about yourself and the rest of the GMs deciding to make a donation to a number of organizations supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. I was just wondering if you could give us some background on how that all came together and why those specific organizations were chosen.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Well, the GM community, or the head of baseball operation, the 30 of us are part of conversations. We have group Zooms during this period of time. And while we compete with each other on a daily basis, even on a night like tonight, where we're trying to draft players that are going to help our organization and beat each other, this was a conversation that started internally amongst that group. And it was a conversation that is happening across our country right now. And we felt like this was an opportunity and a platform that the MLB Network had and that ESPN has given us to be in front of a national audience. And we have a systemic racism problem in the country. It affects all of our institutions. Baseball isn't immune to it. And the way we discussed it was, we have to have a voice. We can't sit quietly and watch the pain and suffering that continues to happen throughout our country, watching history repeat itself and not say something with the voice we collectively have. So that's where the United for Change comes, is that we were doing this together. We felt like we could amplify the Black Lives Matter message, because Black lives do matter. And we're in a position, both from a voice standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint, to be able to try to make an impact. And this was hopefully a first step of action that all of us can do as we go forward.
This is, I guess, for all three of you. You talked about his personality, but how might you go about discerning the character makeup stuff? What does that look like during the process?
Okay. Well, the character and the makeup, when you draft a player, you draft him with skills and tools and physicality in mind. That'll only take you so far. It sounds very cliche, but the minor leagues are filled with very talented players that cannot move up levels. What separates players is their mental toughness. And we've gone through great depths with Pete through his Team USA career, through his high school career, through individual meetings with Pete to determine what kind of player he is, what kind of person he is. And he grades out as high as anyone we've taken in the first round. It's a rare combination of skill, athleticism, and plus makeup that Pete has, and he really meets that criteria. That's going to be one of Pete's strengths, is his mental skills in the game. Super, super smart player, super confident player, and those are the kind of attributes we're looking for.
All right. At this time, there are no other questions. Thank you very much for everyone joining us on tonight's Zoom call. Have a good and safe night.